So today we're continuing learning about Purim, and especially about Amalek. That was the main thing, the main point of Purim. The reason of happiness is Purim because there was a person called Haman, and Haman was a direct descendant from King Agag, that was the king of Amalek. And we read about that at the end of Parshat Bashalach a few weeks ago. And they have this thing against the Jews and against God. They know God, they understand God, they learn Hasidut even, they learn Kabbalah, they know all the secrets of God, and they hate God. They're against God. It's possible such a thing like this. And in fact, it is. This is the way it was, and this is the way it is. If it says one of the accomplishments of Mashiach will be that he will defeat Amalek, but only until then, only Mashiach will do it. Meanwhile, there is this, everything that's in the Torah, of course, is inside of us. That's what Hasidut comes to try to teach us, and to try to find it inside of us and to know what to do with it. So this Amalek inside of us, that's what we're trying to figure out over here in this mimer. The Rebbe is teaching us what is this Amalek, this power which is anti-God inside of us. Now, there's a lot of things which are ungodly. They go against those people that are, the jails are filled with them, and the governments are filled with them, and the United Nations is filled with them. People that they just don't like Jews, they don't like Israel, they don't like God. And there's no real reason for it, because it could be you can tell them all the news and give them all the information and everything, and that our enemies are trying to do to us, the Arabs, what they're trying to do to us, and how nice we are and how friendly we are. That means absolutely nothing. And we have the Torah, and we were just simple, harmless people like Hitler. He just killed all the Jews. He had no real reason for it. The Jews he killed old women and children and just anyone who was a Jew. He just killed them. He just hated Jews, and there was no reason. There were no threat to him. There were Jews, the old men or the men hiding in the forests or somewhere of Romania. What possible harm could they do to him? But no, he wanted to kill them all. So it's this thing of killing the Jew, hating the Jews because you hate God. Now, why would a person do a thing like that? Why would there be? What does it mean? How could it possibly be? And this is inside of each one of us. This is not just some evil force that's lurking in the mountains of the Alps or someplace. This is inside of inside of one of us, inside of every one of us. And in fact, it's very active. It's very active. It itself doesn't necessarily do bad, but it's the source of all bad. My teacher once told me, one of my teachers told me, that when the Russians, the Cossacks, they could kill people all day, but in the nighttime they felt bad. They would drink and they would say, "Oh, I killed a baby today, I killed an old lady." They would feel bad about it. So, but the Germans, when they came in, they were cultured, sophisticated. They could kill people all day and just take a break, smoke a cigarette, and then go back to killing people, because it was just cold, no emotion, evil. Like the source of evil, the love of death. And God, of course, is the opposite. It's love of life. So let's have a look. So we just finished explaining what is the purpose of the world. What does God want? What does God want from the world, right? We're here to fix up the world. Like we said a lot of times, if you want to fix something up, you have to know how it's supposed to be. Right? You can't determine what is bad until you know what good is. You have to know what's good. So in the previously explained, what does it mean good? Good means that this God is revealed in the world. In other words, the creator is revealed in the creation. The purpose of everything will be expressed by that everything. Everything has a purpose to it, and that purpose enlivens it. Right? When a person feels he has no purpose, so he feels all depressed and everything. That's what enlivens it. So that the world will be filled with this godly life. Why God created the world. And that, of course, is connected to the Torah. The Torah is the blueprint of creation. And ideally, this will be in all the upper worlds. And even in this lowest world, even in this physical world, God will be revealed and everything. That's the way it's supposed to be. And let's just take it in physical. Every human being will feel that he's being created and that he's being created for a purpose and that he's very important and that every second is very important. And he'll feel that everybody else is in a way more important. Like it says, who is a wise man? Someone can learn from everybody. So everybody in the world has something to learn from. I'm lacking billions and billions of things because all these people have something. On the other hand, everybody has to learn from me also. I have something to teach everybody. So everyone in the world is better than everyone else in the world. And on the other hand, everyone in the world is worse than everybody else in the world because everyone is lacking the something special that everybody has. And on the other hand, everyone in the world is lacking what I have. So that makes a person on one hand very dynamic and very humble. That's what it's supposed to be when you feel, and is how lucky you are that you were being created, and how much of a responsibility you have to your creator. And what does the creator want? To make this world a good place. That's what he wants. That's what the world is supposed to be. There is what's called this opposite this. One opposite. That's the way God made the world. He made things that are good and he made things that are bad. So if you remember, we learned that in the good, serving God, that there's two ways. One is what's called from the back side and one's called the front side. The back side means forcing yourself. Forcing yourself, you know what's right to do, but you don't want to do it. But so you force yourself. That's called from the back side. Right? You know it's not a good thing to get angry, but you're a person that have a bad temper. So what do? You force yourself not to get angry. You find all sorts of reasons why, and you go to classes or whatever, not to get angry, right? You know it's a bad thing to lie, but you like to lie, right? Every time you meet somebody, you want to impress people, whatever it is, you want to get money from them, you like to lie. All of a sudden, I'm not going to lie. I'll force myself not to lie. Force myself to do. That's called serving God from the backside. That's most people. We have to control ourselves. People are lazy, right? They don't want to do good. So you force yourself to do good. That's called the backside. Then there's the front side. The front side is that you really enjoy doing good. You really are disgusted by bad, right? It's impossible for you to tell a lie. Disgusting. That's called the front side. Okay, here's the Rebbe. There's also Zelum, Zelukim. There's also just one thing. If you remember, we said that the Jewish people are called stiff-necked people. Stiff-necked, in other words, they're stubborn. When they decide to do good, then nothing has stopped them from doing good. That's stubborn in a good sense. That's why it says that the Jewish people are a stubborn people, stiff-necked people, and therefore I will forgive them, therefore I love them. That's what it says. We'll read about that in 2 weeks after the sin of the when Moses acquires forgiveness for the Jewish people. So God says that the stiff-necked people, therefore I will forgive them. And I will forgive them. That's okay. So that's all on the side of good. But there's everything that God makes in the side of good. He makes a mirror image for the side of bad. Right? In the side of good, there's truth. In the side of bad, there's lies. If there was no such thing as truth, there couldn't be lies, right? There can't exist a lie without truth. What's a lie? A lie is that you convince somebody that you are telling the truth. But if there was no such thing as truth, so there would be no such thing as lies. The world depends on truth, things that really are. And lies means to try to destroy the truth. That's what a lie is. Says that also, just like in the side of holiness, there is face and backside, in other words, enjoying serving God and forcing yourself, so it is also in Klippa, in the side of bad. Just like in holiness. And where is this? Where does the evil get its life from? I mean, God creates it, right? So God wants there to be evil in the world. He wants there to be, but he wants it to be on a low flame, on just a pilot light, the potential he wants. He doesn't want it to be actual. The whole Torah is filled with don't do this and don't do that. Don't give evil too much energy. But people do. And that's where it says that evil gets its nurture. Hine. Rashi is going on Amalek. It says that the source of all the non-Jews, of all the idolatry and opposition to God, the beginner, the source is Amalek. Or of the Kalipa, that it is the neck, the back of the neck of Klippa. What do we say the back of the neck? Stiff-necked people for good is? If a Jew makes up his mind to do good, if a Jew makes up his mind to do only what's true, to serve the Creator, as he's stiff-necked, nothing in the world will convince him to do otherwise. Nothing in the world will convince him to leave God. He's willing to die for God. That's called stiff-necked people, like Abraham. That's the basis of Judaism. Stiff-necked to do good. God gave Abraham all these terrible, terrible tests. Oh, I got something in my throat. Nevertheless, Abraham withstood all these tests, stood up against all understanding. Well, the same thing is with Klippa. The same thing is with the side of bad. There is in the side of bad the ability to know everything about God, to know all of the books, to know all of the rabbis, to see the biggest tzaddikim, and nevertheless to hate God. That's like Amalek. We're going to learn there's a big difference between Amalek and Paro. Big difference, right? Paro didn't know any miracles. Paro, if God wouldn't have hardened Paro's heart and kept pushing into him this self-confidence, as Paro would have surrendered. Not the case of Amalek. Amalek struck at the Jews just as they were leaving Egypt. He saw all the miracles, the 10 plagues. He saw the water split. He saw bread coming from heaven. He saw everything. And nevertheless, he warred against the Jews. That's what's called stiff neck of evil, Klippa. And therefore, Nikra Amalek, that's why it's called Amalek. Why Amalek? Al Shem, because of, no, I'm sorry, Amalek, a nation that is Malek, that cuts from the back of the head. We talked about this yesterday. In the Holy Temple, the regular sacrifices were sheep and goats and cows. That's all there were. But then there was also bird sacrifices. Well, the sheep and the goat and the cows, there was also meal offerings. The sheep and the goat and the cows, they were slaughtered just like they're slaughtered now in a Jewish ritual slaughtering. But the bird offerings, there were also bird offerings, they were slaughtered the opposite way of ritual Jewish slaughtering. If you do it the way they did in the temple to a bird, now you want to eat a chicken, you want to eat a turkey or something, and you slaughter it, and the way they did in the temple, it's not good. It's treif. How did they slaughter in the temple? We talked about it. The Kohen had long fingernail, and he would push with his fingernail, or he would go back and forth, but I think he would push back from the back of the neck. That's called from the orif, from the back of the neck. and he would go through until he would cut the food pipe and the windpipe, which that's what you're supposed to do first. You're not supposed to cut the neck bone at all. Not supposed to. It's big questions if you do cut the neck bone, even after you cut the food pipe and the windpipe. There's big questions: is it kosher, is it not kosher? But to cut it first for sure is forbidden. That makes it. And by a bird, it's called that action of cutting from the back of the neck first. That's called malika. Shemalika mina orif. This is done from the back of the neck. That's where Amalek gets his power from the back of the neck of holiness. Obirinya, let's explain this. Behold, Ki malos Yisrael, the highness of the Jewish people, ki am kashe, or if they are a stiff-necked people, shaloch, and therefore Bakesh Moshe, that's why Moshe requested forgiveness for them. She'ein bebechinas, or if they come from the back of the neck of holiness. The Jewish people, what does this mean? Sheyesh lem his gabrus, that they have this power, they can strengthen themselves, defiance, bechinas achrei Hashem alechu, that they'll go after God no matter what. Sheyochlem lakof et alev, they can force their heart, b'shvirut hatayvot, and break their desires, b'kivshom, and to conquer them, v'lamod neged kol monea, and to stand against any obstacles, b'hid gavrus, to be powerful, strength, brave, u'b'chozek, and nikr b'chinas orif. This is what's called serving God from the back of your neck. In other words, without any understanding, you just know what's right, and you'll do it. And even if everybody else is doing the opposite, you're going to do it. That's Abraham. Everyone in the world was doing the opposite. It's called Abraham or Ivri. Abraham is called the Ivri, a Hebrew. He was on one side of the world. Aver means one side, and the whole world was on the other side. That's called a stiff-necked people. If they know what's true, they'll do it against all odds. What does the neck do in the human being? It attaches the brains, shabarot, liot, rosh, in the head, liot, hitzpashtut, beguv, that they could be spread out into the body. Right? You have an idea, you have a thought. You have a thought in your head, what you're going to do. Before you do it, it has to go through the neck. How common is it that people say, that's it, I'm stopping smoking. That's it, I'm not going to smoke anymore. I'm doing it. He saw all sorts of movies about it, and he heard all sorts of stories. He sees all these black lungs from people, and doctors pleading with people, don't smoke, and etc. He says, that's it, I'm not going to smoke anymore. And the next day is a cigarette. Right? Even to the point, this is what I understand, it's forbidden to advertise a person smoking a cigarette. You can't advertise a person smoking a cigarette. It used to be in all the movies and everything. You can't do it now. Because as soon as a person sees someone smoking a cigarette, he wants to smoke. He knows it's bad. He knows it's harmful. He knows it's deadly. He knows it doesn't help him. But nevertheless, he sees somebody smoke a cigarette, he has to smoke a cigarette. The chin is orif. Sha'orif u'machaber, that the neck attaches and links the brain with the head, that they should be spread into the body. Right? So you get the idea in your head, but in order for it to come into your heart and actually do it, it has to pass through the neck. In other words, there's a little bit of a how do you say, a vacuum between your ideas and your actions and your feelings. By means of this, by means of the neck, your ideas, your thoughts, your awareness is drawn into the heart, latot levav, to incline your heart of a person and to transform it from one to the other, from one side to the other, lagamri. Right? Suddenly somebody comes and tells them, hey, you're a Jew. I'm a Jew. Just gets an idea. I'm a Jew. Really? I'm a Jew? Sure, here's the proof you're a Jew. Wow. Can you prove this? He proves it. Logic. He shows him your mother was a Jew, and she says that here's a letter from your mother that she says to tell you that you're a Jew. Wow, I'm a Jew. All of a sudden, this idea, just an idea. Says, wow, I'm a Jew. What does it mean? You should put on tefillin. Yeah, I'll think about it. Should keep Shabbat. Yeah, I'll think about it. It's a big change in my life to think about it. Yeah, maybe I'll do it. You should learn Torah at least. Yeah, good idea. I'll think about it. He thinks about it. Nothing comes out of it. Nothing comes out of it. It has to go through his neck, so to speak. It has to go through a period of contraction and say, I'm going to do it. That's called stiff-necked people. Stiff-necked people means that they don't let the neck get in the way. They have an idea. It's right. It's true. I'm doing it. I'm going for it. Everybody's going to laugh at me. Everybody will scoff. I don't care. Since will come afterwards, legiloi, in an inside way. Therefore, the ideas you have of serving God in your head have to go through the neck. Stiff neck means you don't pay any attention to any obstacles. It just goes straight from the mind into your heart. You do good no matter what happens. But there's also the opposite side. That's the level of Amalek. This is going to be the thing of Purim. We defeated Amalek. This is a sign of what Mashiach is going to do. He's going to defeat Amalek. Or of Akasha, this is the hard neck, the stiff neck of Klippa. the stiff neck, stubbornness of Klippa, Hainu, Shagam, Im Lavavo Yovin, even when his heart understands in the service of God, Shekach Yaseh, that this is what really is owed to God. I really should be a good Jew. I really should keep Shabbos. I should eat kosher. I realize how good God is, how wonderful God is, right? Nevertheless, low diet, it won't help. She'enu machriach et libo, it doesn't force his heart, lekofo latoto lavat Hashem, to love God. Ela af gam zot she'osa hepach lagamri. The person knows what God is, and he intends, the more he knows about God, the more he hates God. The more he knows how good God is, and how good life is, and how wonderful the Torah is, and how good it is to have meaning in life, he's against it. He hates it. That's what it means, that all of the stumbling people, the weak people that are going after God. It's a sentence in Parshas Amalek that we read. It says, when the Jews got out of Egypt, so on one hand, they saw these big miracles. The whole world saw all the miracles. It says that especially the splitting of Yam Suf, it says that all the nations were scared, they were shaking, right? Except for Amalek. Amalek not. It says the Jews also had a problem. What was the Jews' problem? That they were weak. They came out of Egypt. They had never fought for themselves. They never really had any major challenges in life. All they had to do was just, not disagree with Moses. It's true, it says that 4/5 of the Jews, they didn't want to leave Egypt. But the ones that, and even the good, so those people stayed back in Egypt, right? They died in the plague of darkness, it says. But even the 1/5 that left Egypt, they were still very weak in holiness. It was before they received the Torah. Basically, the only reason they really left Egypt was because Moses took them out. Right? They didn't even have the desire to leave. They didn't even know there was such a thing, that you could leave Egypt. They just thought that you just have to make the best of what you've got. That's all. You just live with what it is. Don't make waves. Gather your bricks and make this, and make pyramids or whatever they used to make over there, and just work on it. You work a 20-hour day or whatever is an 18-hour day, and and then you can rest up. That's at least you have a secure life. That's what it was in Egypt. And suddenly God took them out. They got out of Egypt. They got miracles. They weren't used to miracles. They had 200 years of just hard labor, just troubles and difficulties. And just not having troubles one day was a big thing for them. And it didn't happen. 210 years of constant hard work. And all of a sudden Moses comes along and says, that's it, guys, you're getting out. God is going to take you out. So they were weak. The Jewish people were weak. They were following after God because they knew that God did. But inside of them, their personalities, they were still slaves to Egypt. They didn't understand what it means to be slaves to God. That's when Amalek came along. Amalek came along. As soon as a person has doubts, he's a little bit weak, he's a little bit uncertain, he's a little bit ignorant. That's it. Then comes along Amalek. And Amalek is exactly the opposite. This power of Amalek, he knows everything. He recognizes God. He can quote you sentences from the Bible, from the Talmud, from Kabbalah, everything, right? And therefore he says, come and let's, follow me, the opposite direction. That don't get excited about God. That's the main thing. Don't get excited about God. Don't get excited about Torah. Don't get excited about, be cold. And this takes a person away. Hine zuhi rak bechinas chutzpah. This is what we call chutzpah belitam, without any reason. Belidat, without any knowledge. She'osa hepech mi'adat. It does the opposite of what's right. Here you see, it's a very, if you think about it 1 second, this idea of anti-Semitism. People hate Jews, right? People that anti-Semitism hate Jews. Why they hate Jews, right? A person, let's say he hates blacks. Why does he hate blacks? Because their skin is a different color. He doesn't like the color. He doesn't like that color of black. Doesn't like it. And the blacks are different. They're different. They have a little different sense of music, and they have different sense of this. Everybody is different, right? But they're blacks. You can see that they're different. They're different. So he hates blacks because they're black. People hate Orientals. Why? You can see they're different. They have a different color of skin. They have a different. They're different. But why do they hate the Jews? Why do they hate the Jews? What do the Jews do? Right? The Jews, they look like everybody else, basically. Right? They act like everybody else, basically. They don't have any really different Hitler hated all the Jews. In Germany, the Jews were really super assimilated. They intermarried. There was nothing like it. And it killed them all. He wasn't against just the religious Jews. In fact, somebody even brought papers from Der Stürmer, the original Nazi magazine from the 30s, and pictures, cartoons against the Jews, and all the Jews were non-religious Jews. They didn't show the Jews with the beards and the long noses and things like that. They showed fat Jews with long noses. What do they got against the Jews? What is it? It doesn't make any sense. It's chutzpah. Not only that, the Jews contributed. The Jews were they contributed in the arts and the music and all the things that, in culture that the Germans were big on. The Jews contributed to all of it. And nevertheless, they hated it. Why? Pure evil. Pure evil. It says that even more, they knew God. There were among them that they knew the Torah, the church. The Pope knew the Torah, he knew the Talmud, and nevertheless he hates the Jews. Right? Why? Believe Tom, it's without any reason. Believe that. They do the opposite of what is their mind tells them. That's Amalek. Is an Amalek. This is Malika. It comes from the back of the neck, the kritot, mimula orf the kedusha. It comes from the back of the neck of holiness. Shu machriach umafsik hakesher v'itchabrut sheben harosh umochin. That it cuts off between the mind and the heart. V'yitpashtut belev, to spread out into the heart. It stops it from spreading out. What's it supposed to be? A person, God forbid, that's paralyzed. I just saw a person that's paralyzed. His body doesn't work. His body doesn't. His head might work 100%, but his body just doesn't work. The body doesn't work. So on one hand, the person's alive, but on the other hand, a person has to. The same thing as in Judaism. A person can be, here we're talking about even more. Here we're talking about that. In Judaism, it can even affect the heart. Your heart can be paralyzed. That's what Amalek wants to do. You can know about God, you can have books you can read about God and everything, but don't do the commandments. Don't get excited. Kachu Amalek, that's Amalek. Shiyodea v'ro'ah, he knew and he saw all the miracles that God did to Egypt. God did in Egypt to the Jews, and he did when they took them out and gave them bread from heaven. Nevertheless, he made war against them. Amalek was willing to die to go against God. He knew that the Jews had just decimated Egypt, the most powerful country in the world. Nevertheless, it didn't make any difference to him. Masha Enkin, which is not the case, Paro. Paro, he said, Lo yadati Hashem, I don't know God. And with all the miracles, that the 10 plagues, Paro would have surrendered, Lule ki Hashem Omar, if it wasn't for the fact that God said, that I am strengthening his heart. I'm going to give him courage that he's going to stand against me. This was his punishment. His punishment was that he didn't say, okay, Jews, listen, I realize after the first plague, okay, this is something I didn't take into account. Everybody go. Then he would still remain as evil as he always was, Paro. So the Jews would have wandered around in the desert. He didn't, no. He said, I'm not going to even lose, not even the Jews, not even one, not going to give in. And not only that, 4/5 of the Jews would have complied with Paro. They were on Paro's side. So if he was smart, he would have said, okay, listen, whoever wants to leave can leave, right? 1/5 of the Jews would leave. The rest would stay and be slaves. Who knows if that's what it was? But nevertheless, Paro was not this insane opposition to godliness. He didn't know God. He didn't know what it was. Come over, like it's explained in books. The Cain, Kala Akum, also all of the idol worshippers, Haklipos, Mastirim, and Mechasimim, Kedushas Hashem. Also, all the enemies of God, it's being hidden from them, the holiness of God. Because they are in Klipa. In other words, let's say the United Nations, every other week they make something against Israel, right? They know what Israel is. They know what Israel does. They don't care. They care about what the Arabs do. They don't care because they just don't know. And unfortunately, the Israelis don't tell them. They don't know anything about God. They don't know anything about what God is. The Jews are the godly people, right? The Israelis and the United Nations are doing everything in the world to deny the fact that we're godly people. We're not different from you. We're just like you. We like you. Be like, why don't you like us, right? We'll do anything we can just to make you friendly. And it just makes everybody hate. hate us more. Says, but the reason they hate us is not because they know what God is. They're just from ignorance. They just don't know. Right? They have a feeling that the Jews are different. And so they hate the Jews. Although Rishis going Amalek, but Amalek is a totally different thing. Vizaro shel Amalek, and even the seed of Amalek. Perish Zuriya Shalom, his plants, Shazora Yisrael, that are inside of us. Liot lehem b'chinazu, that every Jew has this aspect of Amalek also. Tzorech liot, we have to have a war against this Amalek. This is the little part inside of us that even if we know the whole entire Torah, right? We're Hasidic Chabad, and we learn Hasidus, and we give classes, right? In Hasidut, right? And all of a sudden there's this little Amalek inside of us that says, take it easy, don't get excited. Dor, Yesh Bechinat Yetziat Mitzrayim. In every generation, there is the idea of going out of Egypt. And after you go out of Egypt, in other words, you've gone out of your ignorance, and you feel the oneness of God and the greatness of God, the truth of the Torah, the holiness of the Torah. That's when Amalek strikes. You have to go, first of all, after God. As soon as you get out of Egypt, then you have to realize there's a lot of things you're going to have to just close your eyes and just go forward, because Amalek is going to come and cool you off. And the Rebbe says in another Sikha that what does Amalek say? He says, let's say you see big miracles in your life. Here you read the Torah, you believe every word, right? It says God, 10 plagues, he took the Jews out of Egypt, gave them bread from heaven. God spoke to them, amazing miracles, right? Split the sea, give them water from a rock. Isn't that amazing? So Amalek comes along and says, what do you want from God? God can do anything. You got to get excited about a thing like that. I mean, of course, God, what's the big deal? A miracle. God can do anything he wants to. That's what's the big thing if you split the sea. So the main thing, don't get excited, be cold, right? To cut off the enthusiasm from the head to the heart. It says Asher korcha baderech. There's other sichas that Amalek says korcha. He says that he cut you off, but korcha also means to make you cold. He cools off the Jews. Don't get excited about God. Don't get excited about the Torah. It's no big deal. You don't have to get excited about Shabbos. You don't have to get excited about the commandments. Don't get excited. Well, this occurs in not just non-religious Jews and Reformed Jews. This occurs in everybody. It occurs in me. And it occurs in the Rebbe says it occurs in tzaddikim. Right? Not people that are really tzaddikim, that they really feel God all the time. Nevertheless, there's this aspect of Amalek. Only Moses can take care of it. Only Moses. There were a lot of tzaddikim when they came out of Egypt, a lot of them. Nevertheless, only Moses could take care of it. Hine b'zman ha'galus. Now we're in the time of exile. Nowadays, we're in the exile. We have to close our eyes sometimes and just ignore the world around us and not pay attention to all of the negativity. And we have to do what God says. You have to learn what God says first. First of all, you know what's the right thing to do. Nowadays, though, the wiping out of Amalek, and even back then, essentially, it could not be by means of logic and arguments and explaining and convincing yourself and being an expert in all the laws with the Torah. No. It says, Amalek. We have to wipe out even the memory of Amalek. What does it mean? We always have to be aware. We have to, if we're always talking about him, how can we wipe him out? Here, the Rebbe is doing the opposite. He's talking about him and mentioning him. Says that's not what it means. Is we have to wipe out his effect. We have to beware all the time not to fall into the effect of Amalek, coldness, indifference, milchama, depression even. Milchamat la'Hashem ba'Amalek. This is the war of God on Amalek. Shelo la'adam milchama sheyochol lekavsho. A person cannot make a war to conquer Amalek totally. That our heart, the inside of our heart, should be aroused. You can't do it on your own. It's in God's hands. God can do it. Ein koach adam, a person cannot do anything except biyagiyat nefesh. You can try. You have to try. How do you try to defeat Amalek? Bidbonanut b'Hashem, thinking about God. Thinking about the oneness of God, the goodness of God, the closeness of God, the infiniteness of God, the omnipotence of God. The God is the Almighty. To think about this, how close God is to us, how infinitely distant God is from us. Think about this. Hashem echad kefi asher tochal. That's your battle that you have to make. Benafsho. Oh, asher tochal nafsho se'it. According to what your soul can bear. Think about God as much as you can. Yavakesh rachamim, and then step number 2, request mercy from God. Please, God, give me enthusiasm. Give me some inspiration. Please help me fight against my own selfishness, my own lack of enthusiasm. We ask in every prayer, Baruch atah Hashem, Baruch atah Hashem, Baruch atah Hashem. That's when we make these blessings. What is it saying? That we're asking for God's help. That God should, God exists, God is here before the world is here. And the fact is that we don't really exist. God is creating us. So we have to throw ourselves totally on God, right? And not exactly right. We have to do a lot of the work ourselves. In fact, we have to do all the work ourselves. We have to think about God. We have to work on ourselves. We have to hold ourselves. We have to control ourselves. We have to force ourselves. And then then Hashem helps us. God helps us. We have to do 99.999%, and God puts 0.0001%. And then when you start thinking about it, you realize, well, maybe it wasn't 0.001%. Maybe it was God did 1%. And then you think about it, right? And you're working as hard as you can. Then you realize, well, maybe God did 10%. When you start really thinking, you realize that God did the whole thing. The whole business was just totally God. God gave me the ability to think about Him, gave me the inspiration that I should contemplate, that I should try to be good, that I should try to think good, I should try to act. It all really came from God, but we have to do it all ourselves. But nevertheless, Amalek is going to be with us all of our lives. We can't do away with it. Hainu, when is it going to be? Only, it says, when the Jews reach the land of Israel. Hainu kishiyagia lebechenes eretz tova rachava v'chalav v'davash. We're not talking about the physical land of Israel the way it is now. I think now the president, Israel has become an advertisement for Amalek, I think, nowadays. Nevertheless, all of the Jews, their hearts will warm up to the creator of the universe. When God takes us to the land which is called Eretz Tova Urachava, to a wide, good land, full of milk and honey. Milk, it says, is love of God, and honey represents the fear and the awe of God. That's Ahava B'tanugim. It's going to be a level of love of God, which is called the love in the level of pleasure. The essence pleasure of the soul, the pleasure of life, the source of life will be revealed. That's what's called really coming to the land of Israel. That's why it says that the Mashiach, he'll build the holy temple first, and then the Jews will come to Israel. Why? They'll come to Israel because they'll have such a love of God that they'll want to just come as close as possible. And in the holy temple is the only place you can really come close to God, because that's where you can serve God. Coming close to God means serving Him, doing for Him. And that's called a tremendous pleasure. Then, when there's this tremendous pleasure of in God, then timcha me'atzmecha et zecher Amalek. Then you can do it yourself. Then you have the power to wipe out Amalek, to wipe out selfishness, to wipe out all doubt, to wipe out coldness, to wipe out indifference. Shalo tishkach, and you won't forget the oneness of God, and you won't forget how bad Amalek is. Shalo yeh bebechinas shichra, there won't be forgetfulness. Shehi bechinas acharayim, this is the backside of God. Ve'ein nikasam v'achizasam elo bebechinas acharayim. And that's where Amalek gets its nurture from, is what's called the backside. When people are uncertain, when people are weak, when people are not enthusiastic about the Creator, that's when Amalek strikes. It says, listen, there's no such thing. Forget about the Creator. It's just a big bluff. Don't do Torah, don't do commandments, everything like that. Of course, there's the books. They were written by people just like you. That's what Amalek says. A person that has a feeling inside, no. You can bring all the proofs you want, all the professors you want. I know the Torah came from God, and I know that the rabbis were holy, and that what they said is 100% true. And yes, and they have arguments between them. There's conclusions in the arguments in the Shulchan Aruch. This is nothing new. This is the way God wants the world to be. I am not just going to do what God says. I'm enthusiastic. I love the more enthusiastic you are, the more ridiculous Amalek is with his thoughts of suicide and killing others and killing yourself and killing your godly soul. Like it says, like the Lubavitcher Rebbe said a lot of times, that America needs Israel much more than Israel needs America. The United Nations needs Israel more than Israel needs the United. What do we get from the United Nations except for condemnations? But even if we got everything from them, the fact is that we're God's people and we're the center of the world. You see that every day we're in the news, right? How many people live in Israel? 20 million people every day. And how many people live in Indonesia? Like 500 million people, something. You never even heard of it. When do you have to fight against Amalek? When you're leaving Egypt, when you're just coming into the world of Kedusha, of holiness, and you're very weak, then there's a battle. Which is not the case when God destroys all your enemies around you in land of Israel, the way it's supposed to be. Then this is Panemius, then it'll be inside of us. Everyone will feel it won't be just a thing of fighting God from your neck, the back. You won't have to be stiff-necked anymore. Everyone will feel the goodness of God. You'll feel the happiness. You'll feel the light. You'll feel the energy, the dynamic, our power to serve the creator of the universe every moment. There'll be nothing better than that. Because how do you serve the creator of the universe? With everything in the world, physical things, right? Saying hello to people, being nice, doing favors, doing the commandments, learning the Holy Torah, right? Saying things that make the others happy and make yourself happy. This will be a good and a positive world. And that's only when we destroy Amalek. As we're going to talk about more, God willing, next week. So we're going to learn the Sikha of the Rebbe.